All right, here we go. You're listening to The Tom Kelly Show, the home of personal growth and fun. Is your life where you want it to be? Is it, Warren?
Maybe.
Okay, good. Well, my name is Tom Kelly. No, it's not. No, it's not, Warren. My name is Tom Kelly, and I'm a stand-up comedian who you've seen on Good Morning America, The View, America's Got Talent, and I'm fixing up my life so you don't have to. This is the podcast where we take the existential crisis. Geez, and you know what? I'm going to keep the live take, damn it. Listen, I'm falling apart and we're fixing it up. Think of this journey as an inappropriate TED Talk. Like if TED just whipped it out. Yeah, right there. That too much. See, this is why, but I'm going to keep this read anyway.
Go for it.
I'm keeping it because I learned. You see, that's the nice thing about having somebody else in the room. You could tell where the jokes don't work. So think of this as an inappropriate TED Talk. If TED cursed, okay, you know, or we could just lose the joke altogether. Or if Letterman had a baby with Oprah, you'd have the Tom Kelly Show.
Standard.
God damn it. All right. You know what? Just new episodes Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. I'm across the board on social media as Tom Kelly Show. My guest today is on a rotary phone in somewhere in South Philly. And you can follow me as Tom Kelly Show. And if you like the show, share it with a friend. And if you don't like the show, well, share it with a friend anyway. Let's start.
The Tom Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show.
See, Warren, you lost the new theme song, Glow. Now he's rocking out to it.
From the Tom Kelly Show.
Ba-dum, ba-dum, bum. Trigger warning, spoiler alert, stop calling me Branford. My name is Tom Kelly, and you are listening to The Tom Kelly Show. I am doing a second podcast with my friend Warren Young. Warren is a high school buddy with whom I took high school Spanish. And Warren and our friend Branford Claire were in the class with our friend Tony Wolkin, and I don't think anybody learned a lick of Spanish, and Warren and Branford would use dirty Jamaican phrases and get me to repeat it as if I was learning real Jamaican, whereas in reality, I was just saying dirty things in English and going, yo, man, at the end.
Again, I don't think any of this is proven.
Clean the rifle is the one I remember. See, it's real. If I tell this story to like friends who are not there, they're like, Warren was too nice. Warren was too good a person. And Tom, you are a fool. But clean the rifle was a real thing, right?
That is a phrase that has been used. I don't know.
It is a sexually explicit one, too.
Yes, it is.
Very awkward, folks, when you're on the subway. And I'm kidding about the last part, people. I'm kidding about the last part. But that's the stuff he would do.
I can't. Again, I don't know that we can prove any of this.
Clean the rifle.
That's definitely not how I sounded. If I ever said it, definitely not. Hey, so wait. Before we get too far, so if I'm looking or listening back to the opening,
right?
You are doing this so other people don't have to.
I am, or you know what it is? So the gimmick of the podcast, and it's funny, part of why I wanted to have you on as a guest is one.
Because I'm here.
Yes.
Okay.
Convenient, other guest canceled. By the way, Caitlin O'Connor, follow her she'll be in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful woman, Caitlin O'Connor, who hangs out with all these Instagram models and OnlyFans stars. There's a whole story as to why I wanted to have her on the podcast. As we discussed on last week's podcast, is Warren is a registered but not a licensed therapist.
Registered but unlicensed.
He's a registered but unlicensed therapist. So
sounds so much worse than it is. I promise everyone, it's not as bad as it sounds.
He's a good person.
It just means I didn't take a test. That's all. Pretty much, I just didn't take a test. That's all that is. That's it. That's all.
Okay.
I
feel like, by the way, I feel like I'm getting to know. I'm actually doing an aside to the audience. I'm actually turning to camera as if you're not here. I feel like Warren's telling me to stop making that joke. That's what I'm got out of that. Okay.
I'm okay with it because he's a comedian and it's a joke.
There you go. Yes. Thank you. Two things that we could do back then that we can't do now. So back to me and cleaning my rifles. We had a Spanish class that was hell.
It was high school. I mean, I think we have to start there. Like, I think we in our old wisdom, we have to recognize that high school was high school. I mean, you kind of get out of high school what you get out of high school. It's not really, the highest of level of things. We Spanish 1 for 4 years.
I was in Spanish 1 for 3 years, actually.
Right, right. So I think there's that part of it, and it's not because you didn't pass; it's because that was what we were taught every year.
Well, there was in junior high, which I didn't do with you. There was Spanish 1A.
The green book. One was the green book, and I think one was the blue book.
Yeah.
Or the yellow. Yes.
Then there was Spanish 1B.
Yes.
And if you didn't do well in Spanish 1A and 1B, they said, why don't you just go back to Spanish 1?
So that's interesting because I did Spanish 1A and 1B in elementary. So that's what I spent 8 years doing.
Yeah, but elementary school for you was 7th and 8th grade.
No, it was for. I'm sorry. I guess my elementary school was first through 8th, right?
Yeah.
All the way up to. So I guess I don't even know if it was 4 and 4, but it was Spanish 1A and Spanish 1B for 8 years, and then Spanish 1 in high school. So I think effectively I had the first level of Spanish for 12 years of my life.
Yeah,
which probably explains why we knew so much.
Well, we were in Spanish for people who
sarcastic.
did not care about Spanish.
We knew exactly what a Libro was. Exactly. We could tell you about all the Libro.
El Libros, the books.
We knew all about the books.
So two funny ones is, and also Tony Walken was in the class. There were also a bunch of 10th graders 2 years younger than us behind us, I think, at a certain point.
Likely.
And I just remember there was a lot of like harassing Mrs. Zanzi over political issues. It would be like, Mrs. Zanzi, did you give me a C+ because I'm black? And then I would start chiming in, is that because I'm Irish? And the black people gave me credit. I was allowed to do this. Like I had the permission of the joke.
It was a wonderful time.
But it was all stuff that would get me canceled now.
Correct.
And then it became, too, the oppression of the Irish, Italian, American, and God bless, Marjana was her name. I can't remember, Seegers, something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there was somebody else. But anyway, Marjana would jump in on it because there was a turtle with a brick on it in like the yard behind the classroom. And I said that was the symbol of the Irish people. But I would go into like these rants. That's a symbol of the Irish people. The brick is Lou High trying to keep me down.
Listeners, shout out to Tom's memory because as he mentioned these things, they slowly come back to me. But this is clearly fresh in his catalog. I appreciate that.
And this was I had therapy today at 10:30. I thought it was at 1:30, but my Apple devices, I put it into my calendar while in California. So then Apple put it into California time when I came back to the East Coast. And basically I'm in my underwear and my therapist is trying to FaceTime me. And it's just very awkward.
Maybe a therapist needs therapy now.
Well, she's licensed. Yes. So, but she charges a lot more. Honestly, it's just a piece of paper. So back to me. You and I. It was a hot mess. And what's funny is I cling to memories. I cling to good people. I'm an emotional hoarder. That is one of the things that came up in therapy today. Is I have a good memory and I kind of live in it for probably longer than I should. Whereas I feel like do you meditate? Like I feel like you're very in the moment.
That's fun. That's interesting because someone asked me that very question, I guess, over the past week. I don't meditate.
And it's funny, except that I have known you for now 30 something years. Nobody knew what the hell meditation was 30 years ago. You have been this, you have looked like a man who meditates long before meditation was cool.
I appreciate that. I don't think I formally meditate. I think, and this is kind of how I explained it before, I think my life practices, what I do to kind of take care of myself, may be meditative. So I think that's more what it is. It's not, I don't sit, in yoga. I don't sit in certain poses. I don't do certain things. I live my life in a way that feels meditative for me anyway. And I guess for others that may be.
So what is like a meditative thing you do?
I sit down, I stop, right? I don't go. I take time for myself. I walk and I don't play music. I don't listen to a podcast. I keep away from, too much stimulation like with news and TV. Like I try to manage and moderate all of the things that come into my life and to my senses because I think I'm aware of how overwhelming it can become and how that may not work for a person, right? If there's too much of a smell, oh my goodness, if too much of a taste, if too much of anything isn't good for you. So for me, I think I've just figured out what works for me in terms of what's even, what's easy, what makes sense and makes me feel the way I'd like to feel.
Yeah, you should have a podcast, but the problem
Thanks,
is
man.
you should. But we talked about that. What would you talk about on your podcast?
It'd be like wellness and like support and like feel good stuff and it honestly it'd be about thought provoking things.
Okay,
I love thought provoking content.
like what? Like if you wanted to, like you basically described my podcast, except that you'd rather just do your own than listen to mine.
I'll totally start listening to yours now. I mean, if I don't, I'd be a total jerk.
By the way, that's how I get people to listen to the show. Is I just
enough.
have them on.
And it works. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. And I said it for everyone, so now I have to do it.
Yeah, so like a thought provoking. We got 9 minutes here. We're riffing. What
Okay.
would you talk about?
Is nostalgia? How important is nostalgia? Right. Speaking about memories. Right. How important is, because I think there's an argument where we may live too much in nostalgia, kind of what your therapist was saying. But is that right or wrong? Does spending so much time in the past prevent you from moving on to the future? Right? Can it stunt our growth and development, or is it a coping mechanism, or is it something to keep us safe and secure, or is it for us to be able to kind of squeeze the juice out of the fruit that is our life?
Yeah, so it's funny. I feel that way about my mom's generation. And I also have relatives who are doing a lot on Ancestry.com. Not so much my mom, not my mom, but other relatives and people I know of that generation. And like I always loved how like my parents would sometimes tell all these great stories. And I'm like, wow, all these great stories happened before I was born.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you sort of say, like, nowadays, you want to say to people, hey, instead of sitting around the table talking old times, let's go make a new time or two. Now, going the other way about your thoughts about, I love your non-materialistic approach to life, is I also have friends who go on so many vacations, so many trips, and they're so busy making memories, they don't enjoy the memories they just made. So I think there is,
Interesting.
and I, like I have friends who, while on vacation, will be planning their next vacation.
Right.
Like they'll be in Hawaii and saying, we're going to Africa. We got to go to Africa, you know, or
I think you miss it. I think
yeah.
when you do that, you're not present enough to enjoy the now.
yeah, like I hate when I get together with somebody and the first thing they say is, we got to get together more often. And I'm like, I'm here now. I mean, now
Right.
granted, I think I said that exact thing to you.
And it's something I would say to
But
you. And I'm like, I can't say that to Tom anymore. Right.
Yeah, but I didn't go like pushing for let's pick a date. What are you doing next week? Let's do something in June. Especially for me, for a man whose career. Listen, a lot of the great things that have been happening to me. There's actually a great comedian I met out in California who I'm trying to get on the show, but he's not. He hasn't answered his Instagram, and I haven't cared enough to switch to texting. A guy, Jay Christensen. I have, to be honest with you, I don't know much about him except for the fact that I had one great chat with him while at the Comedy Terrace. Oh my God, I'm blacking out on the name. The Comedy Chateau in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And he had a line, and I don't know if he invented this philosophy or not.
Okay.
It's the 70-30 philosophy of life.
Okay.
Whereas life is 70% of where you steer the ship and 30% of things that happen to you and how you adapt to it.
I've heard something similar. Yeah.
Okay. I think it was invented at the Comedy Terrace on the Late Show.
Probably.
Actually, it's not even the goddamn Comedy Chateau. How am I going to work at that club if I keep calling it the wrong name?
Well, I guess we have one less option.
Actually, the nice thing about the Comedy Terrace is if the comedian sucks, they can just jump. It's a chateau, not a terrace. I don't even know if there is a Comedy Terrace. If there is, people, get me booked there. Right? Comedy Terrace is an awful name for a club.
Right. And now someone's going to make it if it doesn't exist already. But I hope if there's a Comedy Terrace.
Yep.
Oops.
By the way,
He didn't mean that.
And if there isn't, go get the name and you start one. So, but for real, I liked that 70-30 approach to life because right now I think I'm doing well with the 30.
Okay.
Which is, at this point, pandemic destroyed my life. You know, and I say that, I got to stop saying it like that, but it's great. Pandemic was a change.
Sure.
Or in some case, a derailment, a chance to pause, a chance to evaluate if I was on a train track I wanted to be on.
Sure. Yep.
You know, and Warren, if you get a chance, go listen to the last episode with Warren because he said a lot of even smarter stuff than
I have to listen to that guy.
Yeah, that guy was great. Go listen to Warren
Was
Young.
he unhandsome?
He was he was on handsome. He was on a man who was handsome. On Owen handsome. Yeah, you can't do callbacks to the last episode like that. But go listen to him. He was funny and deep.
Pretend it didn't happen.
And I was going, fudge you. Anyway, I've gotten used to. I think I've almost gotten too used to being in the meditative state. Because right now I'm not making enough calls. I feel like I'm not frantic enough. And even my problem is, even when I'm relaxing, I'm now stressed that I'm relaxing.
Then you're not relaxing.
And there you go. So even when I stop, I feel bad that I'm not stopping, or I am stopping. And the nice thing about the pandemic, which I've said on the podcast before, is the awesome thing about shutting down the world was there was nobody to answer if I was making calls.
Right.
You know, and now we've learned from a few people on the show. Listen, while I was out learning how to proverbially make bread, and while I was proverbially starting podcasts and doing whatever, there were other guys who really delved into podcasts, delved into TikTok. And, so the hard part about my career is for every minute I'm not working is a minute I'm not working.
Right. And again, kind of not to keep calling back, but I mean, it sounds like your motivation is like there's a very specific motivation that you're working toward. And I think it's important to remember that, because if you shift your destination, the journey changes.
So it's funny. It's funny how, and God, this is probably not a bomb that dropped this far in, but like the motivation, I've lost a little bit of my why. You know, it used to be I wanted to make people happy when they were down. Then it was I wanted a late night talk show, and I couldn't remember why. I think I wanted it because in high school, doing the late night humor during the day in all these classes, and for those of you who are new to my life, Warren was also in math class with me, where we do a top 10 list every class. And I think where Miss Vogel once sent a progress report to my mother and father saying Tom would rather be a comedian than be in my math class, which my father did not take with the charm and warmth with which Miss Vogel wanted to send it. And by the way, came on a Friday, and this is the days before email, calling, and texting. 2 very awkward days with Dad while he was saying, what the hell did this mean? And this is my impersonation of my father. Whenever the progress reports came in or the report card came in, the envelope would be in his hand, and it'd be guess what just came in the mail today, Jack? One more for camera. Guess what just came in the mail today, Jack? I don't know, Dad. And this, my brother and I both like, I don't know. You want us to say it?
I didn't realize we had Howdy Doody on the show.
Yeah, well, I don't know, Dad. The gas bill, electricity. What else could I have done wrong? You know, you're giving me a lot of rope here. It is around progress report time. Was it that? Progress report came in. And that's also how you knew you were in trouble, if he called you Jack.
Right. Oh, my.
Yeah. Oh, my. So, that was, but anyway, you get into what it was. It was to make people laugh. And then I think somewhere along the way, it either became have to get laid or have to prove people wrong. And I don't mean it like that out loud. I'm in therapy for this, so we don't have to go down that road. I don't know if it was to prove people wrong or to prove myself right.
Tomato, right?
Prove myself right, I think, is different. No?
I think they're very different things, and I think they almost speak to the same need that you're trying to have met.
Yeah, like the need is 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and first half of 11th grade Tom desperately needed validation.
Yeah.
The fact that covering the microphones wouldn't sleep with me, and every other girl in high school, I just ended with the prettiest of all the girls. I mean, this is the thing. I went through, and we could go through the list later.
We don't have to do this.
No, we could. Oh, my God. It would be so fun to watch Warren squirm as I name every girl. Actually, if you really wanted to know which girls I hit on, go pull out my yearbook from over there, and then everybody but 2. Wow. Damn close. I mean, no, close to that. Not everybody but 2. But if there were 50 women in our class, roughly, I probably asked out 20 of them, if not 30.
Okay. So
anyway, but you get into that. Like, it's that, like, I need that validation. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, if you look at that list of 20 now, every single one, even the name I just screamed out, wasn't the one.
Sure.
Would not have put me on a path. Like, I love looking at people's Facebooks to see where they're at in life, and I go, yeah, I couldn't be not in a bad way, but sure. I couldn't be living in that white picket fence house there.
Right. That's not my life.
That's not my life.
So, I guess but
I want that validation, like you were.
I think it's going to be helpful, or it could be helpful to affix your target to something that's sturdy, something that's not going to move, right? And the reality is we are going to have things that are going to change. We're going to have priorities that are going to shift. But if the end goal keeps moving, the journey is going to be really, really difficult. So I would encourage you to kind of, and everyone that's listening, to kind of take the time to figure out what it is that you want to do, like really underneath it all. Like you can say, because I want to get laid tonight. Yeah, but that's not about getting laid. There's something else that's behind that, wanting to get laid that is driving whatever decision it is. So take the extra time, figure that out, and work to that and figure out what that is.
So you're saying every time I hook up with a girl,
okay,
I want something more than that moment of passion.
Absolutely.
What do I want?
I don't know. And in fairness, maybe sometimes you just want that moment of passion, but why do you want that moment of passion? Right? That's the question.
Okay. What if I want that moment of passion just to say I had that moment of passion?
Why?
God damn it.
See, and I think that's the thing. I think if we keep peeling the layers back, there's going to be information that will come to us, but we don't usually ask those questions. So I encourage people to ask themselves the why questions and force themselves to answer.
But it's not just a why, but then you got to ask the why of the why.
Right. Because there's always something else. There's always something else. And I think we stop too early to really get to know ourselves and know things.
This could be, as we hit now the 20-something minute mark.
Yep.
This could be a podcast of Tom goes to therapy. like if this is the personal growth podcast, but it's just Tom with one therapist who just isn't charging his copay today.
A registered therapist.
But you know what I love? If we were to do a third, and I don't know if we have one in us right now, but if we were to do a third podcast, it would be, we'd have to do the therapy disclaimer like Dr. Joyce Brothers, like all those radio, like the sex therapy. Who's the one? Judy, Dr. Judy.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning of Dr. Judy, and Dr. Judy was a sex therapist on FM radio, for those of you who...
Ruth.
Well, Dr. Ruth was another one.
Yeah.
And Dr. Judy Karansky is the one I'm thinking of.
Yes. Right,
so
right.
I just remember at every commercial break, it would be her and Adam Carolla before he was big.
Wow.
And I mean, we're going back to 96,
Right.
not 94, 95, 96. But at every commercial, be Dr. Judy Karansky is not a licensed therapist, and you should go to your own therapist for your own problems, and one application of a problem does not necessarily apply to the other. And again, this really has no educational value whatsoever. And now, sex therapist to the stars, Dr. Judy Karansky. Like awesome. it would be like all the fast. It would be like a Cialis commercial,
right?
Like all the side effects, but backwards. It would be a backwards Cialis commercial. Disclaimer. Right. And this is the person you need to live your life.
But it's important because it's not one size fits all, right? And remembering that if I have if something worked for me, doesn't mean it works for you.
Well, you know what is my father had I disagree with that to some degree.
Okay.
Or not disagree, but I will close with my thought for why I always say I'm fixing up my life, but you don't have to, is I do think the process of being around other people improving their lives might help you. And my father had an expression in the fire department. My father was a firefighter in the 60s and 70s, and whoever was driving the truck, they wouldn't go to people's houses. This is when even people didn't necessarily even have phones in every house in New York City. You would run out to the street. There'd be a little red fire alarm box. You'd pull it, and all the fire department knew was box 172 went off.
Right.
And the line was for the driver was, "I'll give you the borough, you give me the box." Okay. Which meant I'll get you into Manhattan, but you got to figure out what street 172 is on.
Okay.
And I do think your one-size-fits-all thing does give the borough. It does give you the, yeah.
It may. See, and I think that's the, so I'll close. My closing is going to be, I think it's awesome that you are trying to fix your life. And whatever's fixing your life may not fix someone else's.
I agree with that. No, and I could end with a little bit of comedy. It's always like, or comedic observations, not real comedy, people, but a few comedic observations is like everybody who's in therapy thinks everybody else needs therapy, and one person who's drinking celery juice to clean her bowels will say everybody needs to start drinking celery juice. So you're right. Just because Tom's doing a podcast about fixing his life doesn't mean everybody needs to start doing a podcast about fixing their life.
But fix your life if you want to.
Okay, but realize, folks, this advice does come from Warren Young, who is a registered but unlicensed therapist, and nobody's exactly sure what that means. We do know that he is allowed to treat patients, and he is allowed to charge, but not that much, and your insurance company won't pay for him. But he is the best in the business. Warren Young, not a doctor, because he didn't try hard enough. Not licensed because he didn't want to take the test, but he is brilliant and a friend you all need. I would give you his social media, but he has none that he wants to share with you people because he doesn't want to hear.
He just doesn't have any at all.
He doesn't have it. Just doesn't have it. By the way, last episode you said you were going to get a Tom Kelly Show theme song going. Anything in the last few hours you've had since the last show?
Working on it. Almost done.
All right. Well, until next time, folks. Good night, New York.